Hello everyone and welcome to chapter 22 of this Flutter course. In the previous chapters, we've been talking quite a lot about login and register and email verification. And as you saw in the previous chapter, we have some problems still in our register view in that when we come to the error handling, we're still doing logs basically instead of using our new function that was called show error dialog. And also our register view basically isn't really able to send us to the correct place after a successful registration. You see, we have email verification set up in that every user who registers also needs to verify his or her email before entering the main UI of the application. So if that is the default behavior in that a newly registered user needs to verify their email, perhaps it would be best that we send the user right after registration to the email verification view. And these are the things that basically we're going to solve in this chapter. Fixing our log statements in the register view and also sending the user to the email verification view. Sending the registered user to the email verification view right after registration, okay? So these are the goals of this chapter, so you know, and I'm going to bring up my Visual Studio Code to the screen so you can also see it. I'm going to bring up strcpy to the right-hand side so you see that too. Position these windows a little bit better. All right, so the first task that we need to do here is to make sure that we're using show error dialog in our register view. And if you haven't watched the previous chapter, that's what we did in one of the previous chapters that we talked about this file here in utilities, show error dialog. Gonna increase the size of the window so you see it better. So this show error dialog is a generic dialog that has a title that says an error occurred and also a text of your choosing. So let's go to our register view. As the caption says here, I'm going to minimize the terminal here and get rid of the Explorer. And let's go to this weak password and then start typing show error dialog. And you can see it's going to auto import it. Excuse me. It's going to auto import it for us. So let's say show error dialog with that context. And I'm just going to, in the case of a weak password, we need to just say weak password. Okay. So that part is done. And you can also put a comma at the end of the second parameter just to make sure that it is clean. But remember also that show error dialog is an asynchronous function. So if you move your mouse over it, you'll see that it says future void. So by just calling show error dialog, you're not showing the error dialog. You're basically just telling the show error dialog to return a future, which in turn then can display the error dialog if you await on it. So don't forget await. After doing that, let's remove our DevTools log from there, from the weak password if statement. And now what we're going to do is to copy this code that we wrote here and go to email already in use and display another error dialog in here using the same exact code. And I'm just going to say email is already in use. Okay. So that's for email already in use. And also for invalid email, we're going to say just invalid. Let me have a look for invalid email. If we should just say this is an invalid email address, right? And I can see that we haven't really handled other exceptions that might occur, because you remember in the login view, we had a look at handling, for instance, other exceptions that might occur, like Firebase auth exceptions that we did an else statement there. And also we did a generic catch statement that catches any other exception that is not a Firebase auth exception. And I can see now we haven't done that in register view. So let's go and take care of that. So let's just say else. So in this else statement, we're catching any other Firebase auth exception that might occur. Okay, so I'm just going to say here, and I'm just going to say error and $e code. Okay, so that's very similar to what we're doing in our login view. So, and I apologize, I could just see that you couldn't see the code because it was hidden behind the caption, but now you can see it. So I'm putting an else statement here, and then I'm saying basically await show error dialog and e code. So that's for if you have a look at this curly bracket right here, which you can now see, this purple one, it starts here because it's the beginning of where we start catching Firebase auth exceptions. And what we also need to do is put another catch statement here, which catches any other exception that is not a Firebase auth exception. Okay, so we've covered this in the previous chapter when we talked about exception handling in the login view. So I don't think I need to explain that again. Okay, so what we're going to do in here, we're also going to show the error dialog in this case as well, but for the message, we're just going to say E2 string, okay? Something similar we did in our login view, actually exactly the same thing. Okay, that was great. So now we're using show error dialog instead of log in the register view. And now basically, I don't think we're using DevTools. Oh, we're using DevTools login here. I don't think we need to do that anymore. So we can get rid of that. And we can also then get rid of DevTools import over here. Okay. Just gonna have a look at my notes a little bit just to ensure that I'm telling you all the information that you need to know. That's great. Okay. Now that we've done all of this, we need to also make sure, you can see as the caption says, after every registration, we need to confirm the user's email. And that is like the pattern of every newly registered user in an application, that a newly registered user cannot have already confirmed their email because it's just not possible. The two don't go together. A newly registered user hasn't had their email address registered in our system, therefore has not received a verification email during this session. So this is a pattern that we need to basically help our users with. So after every successful registration, we're then going to automatically send the user to the verify email view. And if you remember from the previous chapters, we have this verify email view right here, which is its own stateful widget. And I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a stateful widget. I can see it's not doing anything stateful, but we've just left it as stateful widget. And it can just be like that for now. But we can also turn it into stateless widget if we want to. Okay. So that's for the pattern of what our users are doing with the register view. So if we go to register here, oops, no, we are actually on the register view. Sorry about that. So, okay, so what we need to do now is, since we're going to send the user from the register view, we're going to send to the verify email view, we need a route for that. And if you remember from the previous chapters, we're defining our routes now inside this file, lib constants routes.dart. And we've right now defined login route, register route, and nodes route. Then we need a new route for the verify email view. So let's go ahead, as the caption says in here, and just type that and just say const verify email route is /verify email, like that, with a slash at the end as well. So now that we've defined the route, we need to then go, excuse me, we need to go into our main Dart file. So I'm going to close this file, and then Command P on Mac in Visual Studio Code, or Control P in Linux and Windows, and go to main.dart. Okay. In your main.dart, remember all the routes were registered inside the routes parameter of your material application. So let's go ahead and register the verify email route here. And we say context, and we just say const verify email view. And so that's also then registered inside the main function, okay? Remember, anything that you're doing inside the main function is not going to be reloading when you do hot reload. So you need to do a hot restart here in order for those changes in the main function to take effect. So I'm just going to do a hot restart here. Okay. So now that we've registered that, let's go to our register. Now that we've registered, there are so many register words I'm throwing out there, so I just want to clarify. Now that we've registered the verify email route in our routes in main Dart, we need to go to the register view and use this verify email route in there after a successful registration. Okay, so let's then go to our, I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go to register view right here. Okay. Here I can see that we're getting the user credentials and then assigning it to this user credential. We don't have to do that anymore. So let's just remove that. We are not going to actually use the returning user credentials. Upon a successful create user with email and password, we're going to go to the next line automatically because we have a try and catch statement here. So now what we need to do is we're going to show the verify email route. Okay. So let's go to our verify email routing here. And what we're going to say is to say navigator dot push navigator of context. And then we're going to say push named. And you see, in this case, we're actually going to say push named instead of using the other functionality that says push named and remove until. And the reason behind this is that when a user is inside the registration page here, when we want to go to the, let's say that you enter some email in here and then you enter some password and you click the register button or you tap the register button and we send you to the verify email page where we say, here you can verify your email, etc., etc. Now in there, if you realize that, oh, I registered with the wrong email, you need to be able to go back to the register page. So in order to avoid having all these buttons that go send one user from one page to the other, it would make a lot more sense if we, from the register view, could just push the new email verification route so we don't replace the entire routes like the register page with the new route. So basically the desired effect here is that our register page is going to stay right here, and then we're going to push the verify email route on top of it. If the user in the verify email route realizes that they've done something wrong with the email address, then they can just press the back button on the top bar and go back to the register page. So that is just a natural way of navigating between screens. So that's why we're using push named in this case. Okay. So I'm going to say push name, and then in the name, we're just going to say verify email route. Oops. Verify email route like this. I'm going to do a Command S right there. And then let's make sure that we can put all of this in action. All right. So I'm going to hot restart just to make sure. You remember we did a change in our main function. So if you forgot to do hot restart, please do that now so that your changes can actually take effect. From the login view, which is the first view that the user sees, we're going to go to the register page. And inside this register page, I'm going to register with a new user. So since I've already registered my user, I can actually go to Firebase console. So let's go to console, Firebase. The user which I usually use is already registered with this application. So my notes Flutter project, okay? Let's go to authentication, and I can see pixolityab@gmail.com is already registered. So I'm going to register with a new user in here. I'm going to say van.np, and the password is fubarbaz. I'm just going to choose here. And please don't use this password in production for any of your accounts anywhere at all. This is just a bad idea. I'm using fubarbaz for consistency and for the sake of simplicity in this project. So because for me, it's a lot easier as I'm typing and writing all the passwords over and over again just to use fubarbaz, but this is not a good password. So I think just to make this clear. Now I'm going to register this user. And now you can see that after a successful registration, now we're ending up in this verify email screen. And this is really good. But there is a way we can actually make this better. And let's go to Firebase here, and I can see now that user is already registered here, you see, and it has a user ID. And here's the last sign-in date, okay? So how can we make this better? You see, if this is the natural flow of going, like when the user is in the register page or the register view, and they always end up in the verify email page, the way that we can make this better is that upon successful registration, right before we push the verify email view on the screen, is that we actually send a verification email to that user. Because otherwise, what you're creating a logic for the user that they have to take an extra step in order to verify their account. So they come here and now they have to press another button. But It would be really good if you actually did that button press kind of for them before we went to that screen. So we're not actually going to physically like tap that button for them, but we're going to execute the same code that that button executes for the user. Okay. So that's what we're going to do now. So as the caption says in here, in your register view, right before you navigate to the verify email route, ensure that you get the current user basically. So you say final user is Firebase auth instance, I believe, and current user. Okay, get your user. And then in here, just say user, and there is a function called send email verification. And remember, your user is an optional user, and that's why you're seeing this Elvis operator here, which is kind of like a mustache or something. I don't know what you want to call it. Some people call it Elvis operator if you're coming from Kotlin, or in Swift you would say like an optional invocation, depending on the language that you're coming from. But if you don't have like a software development background, then you may just call it question mark dot. So remember now, so user is optional, and this function returns a future voice. So you can't just call it; you need to await on it. And so now we're doing that. So we're now awaiting on that. All right. And also, since now we've changed our logic in that when you press the register button upon successful registration, we're sending you an email verification, is not a good idea to end up on this screen that just says please verify your email address, because let's just face it, we have already sent an email verification, so we don't want the user to click this button. Actually, we want the user to click this button or tap this button if they haven't received the email in a while. All right, so we don't want like double emails for users, so it's just not a good idea. So sorry, I'll just have a look at my notes a little bit here. Okay, so what we need to do now is, as the caption now says here, we need to go to our verify email view and add a text on top to say we have already sent a verification email, okay? And that's just common sense, okay? So let's go to our verify email route, which is basically verify email view in here. And you can see that we have a column in here, and the first text at the moment says please verify your email address. So let's create another text in here. I'm going to say const text, and I'm going to say weave. You see, because I want to write the word weave as in we have, there is a single quote in here, so I cannot have my own string having single quotes, because then Dart doesn't understand what this string is, because it thinks here's a string that starts here and it ends here, but what is this one? So in order to have single quotes inside your Dart strings, then you would have to encapsulate or basically put your string inside double quotes, so you avoid that confusion. So we can say we've sent you an email verification. Please open it in order to verify you. Yeah, so please open it to verify your accounts. Something like this, okay? And also this text, then we need to change that as well, because you see, we don't want this text to be kind of like a call to action saying that, hello, like here we're saying, we sent you an email verification, please open the verify your account. And then right after that, we're saying, hey, click this button. So that's not a good idea. Let's just change this text and say, if you haven't, and let's make this double quotes as well, just the same story as before. If you haven't received a verification email yet, press the button below, something like this. Okay, so I'm just going to press Command S, and now you can see those texts being displayed on the screen. They're not very pretty, to be honest with you, at the moment, but that's okay too. So that's not a problem. Let it be like that. All right, so we're displaying that text to the user, and what we need to do now is to test this whole flow, basically, again, just to make sure that it's working as expected. So in order to do that, go to your Firebase console again, and I'm gonna bring up the console in here. Hopefully you can see it too. And I'm gonna go to that project and authentication, and this user, I'm gonna delete this user. Okay, delete, poof. All right, that user is gone. I'm gonna close the screen now. And what we're going to do then is just to hot restart the application in order to clean all the states. Hot restart. Is it not taking effect? All right. I'm going to then verify email. I can see that there is no back button, and it kind of feels like we're ending up in that screen because in our main Dart file, let's go in main Dart. I believe that we're actually sending the user to verify email view in this case, user Firebase instance current. Okay. So this is a little bit of a problem because now we're kind of like stuck in this view, because Firebase, as the caption right here says, it says Firebase doesn't understand the remote changes. We removed that user completely, but Firebase still believes that that user exists. And that is because, you see, Firebase can't, like the client that is inside, the code that is inside the client application which you are developing, can't constantly talk with Firebase and say, give me the latest state, give me the latest state. This user that is right now on this phone is a local user that once had a connection with the backend, but it doesn't anymore. But Firebase doesn't like delete this user locally. So what we need to do is the best way to handle this case is to have kind of like a restart button in our verify email. So if for some reason the user, like in this case, understands that, hey, I'm stuck, I need to get out of here from verify email, I kind of want to go back to where I was. So what we need to do is to, upon the user pressing a restart button here, we want to sign that user out so Firebase understands, well, this user isn't signed in anymore, so that we don't end up in this case that email is verified, etc., etc. And we also are going to send the user to the register view. Okay. And as you can see, we can't send the user back to the register view. I mean that we can't expect the register view to exist on the view stack in this case, because if a user has just freshly started the application, so they will end up in this future builder. The future builder would then check the user and says, oh, you should go to the verify email view. And in this case, there is no register view behind the verify email view. So in that case, you will see that we won't push, but we will actually do push named and remove until. But we will get there soon. Okay. First off, let's go to your verify email view, and right after this text button, we're going to add another text button. Up a little bit so you see it better. And let's just say a text button. Unpressed is just going to be empty for now. And then for its child, we're going to add a const text that just says restart. Okay. So that's that. And in here, what we then need to do is, as I mentioned before, is to, and as the caption explains here, we need to actually log the user out. So let's say Firebase auth instance, and then what we need to do is to say sign out. Okay. Remember, sign out, I also believe, is a future of void. So you need to await on it. So, oops. I think I just jumped screens without actually really wanting to do that. So let's await on it, and it's going to give you an error because now your onPressed function is not async. So make it async, right? After doing that, you see, if I do Command S, now we're going to see the restart button here, but doing that just does a sign out. It doesn't actually send you to the register view, and we're going to take care of that soon. So as the caption says, navigator of context, a push named remove until. And in here, we're going to send the user to, remember from our routes view, our routes file, there is a register route. Okay. So let's go there. Let's go to register routes. And in here, we just leave the code as it is, and a comma at the end to clean it up a little bit. And that should be good to go. Okay, now I'm gonna do a hot restart. You will see now we end up in here, because it's still the user is logged in because we haven't executed this code yet. And I'm just gonna then press the restart button, and you'll see we end up in the register view. Just to make sure that we're not gonna go into this vicious cycle again, that every time we do a hot restart, we're gonna end up in the verify email view. Let's just do a hot restart now to see what the state of the application is going to be. And as you can see, upon hot restart, we end up in the login view, which means that the main Dart file in the future builder, it went to this code. So the user is null at the moment. And that's exactly what we wanted because we signed the current user out, okay? All right, so we're then going to use the same credentials to as before to register. Let's just go to the register view then, and I'm going to say van.np@gmail.com and then Firebase. And I'm going to then register this user. And you can see it says, we've sent you an email verification. Please open it to verify. And I can see on my third screen here that I actually got the email verification. So as you can see in the caption, it says, get the confirmation email, but don't confirm yet because we kind of need to have a look at a problem that we have in our application. So now let's see if we can log in. So what I'm going to do is to go back on the screen from the verify email, go back to the register view, and instead of doing a registration again, go to the login view. Now use your current like the new user that you just created, but you haven't confirmed the email. Use the credentials of that user and say at gmail.com and Firebase, and then press the login button. You'll see now we've ended up in the main UI of the application. And that is problematic because any user, just like I did, can go to the register view, then they will go to the confirmation view automatically. They say, okay, I got a confirmation email. And then they don't confirm the email. They press the back button to go to the register view again. And from register view, they go to the login view and then they log in. So because you see in our login view, in here in this code, right after signing with email and password, we're not verifying that the user has actually verified their email address. We're just saying sign in, and Firebase says, all right, sign in. Great. The email and password match an entry in the authentication database. I'm good to go. And then we're just saying push the notes route. So that is a problem that we have that we need to fix in the next chapter, okay? But for now, we've done a lot of code. I can see all the files are changed. So let's commit our code and tag it like what we're doing in other chapters as well. Gonna go to the terminal, gonna change the screen layout a little bit so you see it better. Increase the size of the views so you see it even better. And you can see the previous tag was step 6. Now let's have a look at the status of our code, and I can see there's lots of changes modified. You can always issue the command GAPA, which I call GAPA, and that will show you all your changes. But I'm just gonna say git add all. I'm gonna say git commit, and we said that we're gonna commit this as step 7, okay? And push those changes to GitHub, and I'm gonna also tag it as step 7. So like that, step 7, and then I'm just gonna say git push tags. All right, fantastic. Now, as the caption says here, we need to get ready for the next chapter. And as you can see, it says user needs to verify email before going to the main UI, because that is, as I explained, that is a problem that we have, which we haven't addressed yet. But it's quite easy to address, as you'll see in the next chapter. So I'll see you there.